What is up, everyone? How are you doing? Welcome to this amazing October version spooktacular episode of TSMU Q&A series. I'm your host, Christian Lee. You can also call me Homie. I am the global sales executive for TSM, so essentially I'm responsible for brand outreach and coming up with cool ideas and pitching to brands and bringing new partners in. Today is going to be a very special episode because we're joined by our extremely special guest, Brandon Ho, from our good partners, Logitech. Brandon, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic today, Christian.
Thanks for joining us, man. Really appreciate and I love having you on. Quick reminder slash overview for those who have not seen the show. For this Q&A series, we'll be pulling in questions from our TSMU Discord channel. So if you have any questions for Brandon, please head to discord.gg/TSMU and ask your questions in the Ask Stream Questions Here channel. Once you've asked your question, join the waiting room voice channel to wait to be selected for you to join the show. While people getting their questions in, Brandon, why don't you tell us a little about yourself and what you do in your role as the content creator relations and esports social media at Logitech?
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Brandon, or Dog Impersonator. People call me Dog a lot who know me from video games. I do content creator relations and mostly esports social media for Logitech G. I've been here for a little under 2 years now. I started as a communications major. I went to UC Santa Barbara for 2 years. I was actually a transfer student. I went to community college for 2 years. And then straight out of college, I went to go work at Ubisoft for a little bit on contract. I had previously interned there over my junior year, summer of college. But I went back to work for them for about 6 or 7 months. And then I switched over to Logitech G, which is where I have been the last 2 years. I play a lot of video games, which is very fortunate for me and the job that I'm now in because it is now very relevant. Sorry to my mom, it was not a phase that I was going to grow out of. It actually is probably going to be a lifelong thing. League of Legends was always my big thing. I've played literally since like season 1. I've played probably way too many hours. I tried to play competitively in college at one point. That was cool, but yeah, it kind of just all led up to what I'm doing now. So that's a little bit about me.
You're not the only league/video game addict here, Brandon. No worries to apologize. I wish I could say competitively, but only in gold. So competitively
Gold's
trash.
competitive.
Yeah, you got to deal with all the competitive 13-year-olds out there beating my boomer status. I have a first question for you, man. Since it's the spirit of Halloween, we've talked about this. I've queued it up. I got to know, what is your favorite Halloween themed movie? For you. Mine personally has always got to be Halloween Town. I brought up and I unlocked a child memory with Scary Godmother. I don't know why I know that random show from Cartoon Network. Brandon, I'm curious to know what you got up.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of like scary movies myself, so I think my favorite Halloween movies are always like the child cartoons. Same exact thing from like Cartoon Network that I would just watch on loop. Scary Godmother was a great one. Some of like the Disney Halloween movies, like I was Hocus Pocus Disney.
That are like Hallmark.
It was like one of those, but all the Disney like Halloween movies, basically just like all the feel good, but like a little bit spooky, were my kind of vibe for Halloween.
Yep. It's those things that just unlock a vault of childhood memories that you're just like, I can't believe I remember this. I'm watching this again.
Yeah.
Welcome to being in your 20s.
I have to go back and watch them. As like, I feel like it'd be a nostalgia bomb of like, I remember being 10 years old and just like eating candy.
Yeah, and now I'm 26, eating candy, still in the dark.
And sitting here, yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. Why don't we get down to business and ask the real first question?
Sure.
Galaxy asks, can you explain your experience interning for Ubisoft? Is it as competitive as people say it is?
Sure. Yeah, Ubisoft was my first like major internship, I would say. Super cool. I was an events intern there. The events team at Ubisoft was actually pretty small. I think when I joined, there was only 3 like full-time employees, and then I joined as an intern, so we had sort of a 4-man team. And later it kind of joined to be a bigger team with their PR squad they had there, so it was like a large team of like 30. But the events team was very small, which was very cool for me because it meant that there was like a lot of things for me to do because there weren't that many people to spread it between. So it was really one of those internships where you join, and when I joined, they told me this isn't going to be one of those internships where you join and you're getting coffee or you're just doing busy work all the time. Like you're going to be doing things that need to be done for us to do our job and for things to actually be completed. So you're going to gain a lot of experience. You're going to get to try a lot of different things, which is exactly what I was looking for in an internship. Right.
Hmm.
I think in college I knew I wanted to work in video games, and that's all I would tell people is like I want to work in the video game industry, but I don't know how. I don't know if I want to be in esports. I don't know if I want to work with creators, something in video games. And so this was like the first avenue I had of like, okay, it's something. Like I don't know if I'll love events, but I may as well try it out. And it was a fantastic experience. One thing I didn't really think about when I was joining the internship is for events you actually travel a lot.
Hmm.
And if you just think about it, there's a lot of public events, right? There's TwitchCon, there's PAX, and then there's all these private events that they host where they're showing their new games to the press and all of these smaller scale like private events, which are
Hmm.
really cool. It was pretty competitive. I want to say the position that I applied for had like I want to say like 300 plus people who applied,
Yeah.
and for people who got like an in-person interview, I want to say it was like 8 to 10 people. So it is very very competitive. I think a lot of video game jobs in general are very competitive, especially internships because that's what everyone's trying to get. I think later on, I'm sure this will be asked, but it's like, what's one of the best things you can do? And it really is just get as much experience as you can in whatever asset you can. And internships is probably one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it was great. I think I was super fortunate to work at Ubisoft. One, because I got to get my feet wet in some type of video game industry job, and two, my upper management there was fantastic. They would always push work to me that they thought I might think is interesting. They'd give me work that is challenging, but they're always there to answer my questions and help me along the way. And I think that just makes for one of the best internship opportunities that you can have.
No, I 100% agree. From getting recognized to applying all the way to during your internship, it's all about standing out. What's it actually like being in kind of, I guess you said it was like a three-person team or whatnot. What's it like being in a smaller team but at a big name company? Because
Yeah,
I mean, I think at TSM we're really small, but at the same time, like we are pretty big in brand name, not pretty, we're huge in brand name. So
yeah,
I personally think it's amazing being able to touch things that affect thousands and thousands of people. I'm curious what
totally.
you think on the publisher side, or even at Logitech if you feel like you're just smaller.
Sure. Yeah, and I would say my Logic team it was also actually a lot smaller when I first joined. It was actually only three of us on the smaller digital marketing team. Now it's expanded, so it is a slightly
Yeah.
larger team. But to go back to like that smaller team thing, I think it's an awesome experience if you're someone who has a lot of drive and wants to
Yeah.
learn a lot and do a lot. Right? Like it's
Yeah.
going to be really busy and really packed because there's only so many people to do all the things, but you get to get your hands on so many things,
Yeah.
and you get to learn a lot very quickly. And you're going to make a lot of mistakes,
Yeah.
especially as an intern. Like I was making mistakes almost every day, and my upper management would basically just be like, "Mistakes are fine. Like we know you're going to make mistakes. That's how you learn, right?" I think the
Hmm.
important thing is when you make a mistake, don't make the same mistake twice.
Yep.
And that was key for me, and it gave me this attitude of like, okay, I'm going to try new things, and it's okay if I mess up as long as I don't do that same thing again, right?
Yeah. No,
um
that's a great
yeah,
mindset. Yeah.
small teams are great though. I love being really close to my like coworkers. I think it just makes for better work, honestly. Like having a coworker that you're super down to like go grab lunch with, or even like after work go and hang out, is like a coworker that you actually want to be around during the day. It's not just a work thing. And I think smaller teams usually develop that, hopefully,
Yeah.
if you have good relationships going. I think it makes for really really strong work. And the other good thing about small teams is you never really get lost. Like everyone knows what's going on. I think as you get bigger and bigger, sometimes things get held up by a certain part of the team that's more distant, doesn't really know what's going on. So for me, I love small teams.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that sentiment. It's all about family, and it's really you definitely get that feel. And at the same time, the other end, you have to be comfortable wearing a lot of hats. If you're someone who's like, "Oh, that's not my job," it could be tough
Totally.
for you. I'll tell you. But personally, it seems like you have the many hats vibe, which is awesome to hear.
Dude, the many hats vibe, that's
Yeah.
that's what you wanna do, because that's how you figure out what you wanna do. Like, everyone
Yeah.
I don't know, for me personally, like, all my grandparents and my uncles are like, "Oh, what do you wanna do when you graduate college?"
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like most people have no idea, right? Like,
Nope.
you've never really done anything except maybe if you've done some internships. So it's
Yeah.
really just do as much as you can, like, wear as many hats as you can in
Yep.
those internships to kinda get a feel for what you might be interested.
I feel that. I call it the shotgun approach. I always
Yeah,
just see what sticks.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. It works.
Yeah. We got another question from Capsic who asks, what does Logitech look for in a partner? What value do you want to see in those partners that are shared with Logitech?
Oh, sure. Yeah, this is a great question. At Logitech G, we have sort of two different programs for creators. We have our sponsorship program, which is our more like we work with them on a contractual level, and we have like regularly scheduled content with them. And then we also have our other creator program, which is our partner program, which is where we still work with you, but there isn't like this mandatory amount of content that they have to make for us. They aren't under the same like contractual obligations. So if you're asking about partner, um, I think this question is more asking just what do we look for in creators in general that we want to
Mhm.
work with, and it's the same for partner and sponsor. So for the most part, it's we want to find creators that really like actually enjoy gaming and that really create a like welcoming environment for their community and for the gaming community as a whole. I think is probably the most important thing to us. Like whenever we're looking at creators, we're like, do they foster like a positive and welcoming community for everyone watching them? Because that's really what all that we want to do is we love to play. We love playing games. We want everyone to be able to play and have fun. So for creators, that is probably the number one thing we look for. Obviously, there also comes down to numbers. Like you have to look at viewership, you have to look at how many followers they have on social media accounts to see, kind of like reach that they would have when they're using your products. But I would like to think, for the most part, one of the biggest things we look for is, fostering a healthy community, being positive in the space, and also just creating really cool content. Like
Yeah.
there's a million creators out there who just play games and stream, but the creators that take that extra step, like I've seen some amazing things with stream decks and with just short TikTok content that they make on the side. That's just like it's either like super funny or it's just super well made. A lot of that content that stands out are the things that catches your eye.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that really goes to, I mean, it goes starts off the root, and that's how you create authentic partners. To just
Yep.
extend your
Absolutely.
authentic, like, I think that's so huge. But I feel like authentic can just be this giant word that brands might not necessarily understand or still trying to figure out. And I think it trickles down all the way to the content creators. So that's really cool to see, and it can totally tell from all of Logitech's ads and everything you do.
Totally. And authenticity is like one of the best words to describe what we look for in creators too. Because like people aren't dumb. Like people who watch streamers can tell when
No.
someone's just
Yeah.
selling out fully and they're like, I got sponsored. Just buy these products, guys. Like, and they don't really care about it. You can really tell the difference when there's a person who's like used a Logitech G mouse for their whole life. And they're like, guys, like I can tell you about this mouse. Like I've used it for 4 years. I used it at this event. Like it can do this, this, and this. You can so easily tell this difference of authenticity.
There we go. Authenticity.
Close
That's
enough,
a T
close
word.
enough. Big word, guys. It's late in the day.
Yeah.
But you can really tell the difference, and that's generally like what makes people actually want to get closer to a brand or think about maybe trying a new brand. Is like, wow, this person that I trust actually seems to believe that this is a good thing, and that's important.
Yeah, it's no longer those old 1950s commercials where you see all these kids with these little Legos building it like they're in construction. It's a new age. People are smart. We're woke.
Yeah, really,
Yeah.
they really are.
That's awesome. We actually got an awesome voice chat coming in. This is Belle Bellum. How you doing, Belle?
Hello. Sorry, I just grabbed my water.
All good. What's your question?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm really interested in this whole idea of, I guess, like talking to partners and creating like these different connections,
Mhm.
content creation in general. Yeah, big water shout out from Allie. But what does it mean to be a partner? I think that was one of our previous questions. Like, what do you look for in a partner? And then how does that then, what does that even mean?
So I guess I can give some context on some of like the benefits that a creator would get if they worked with us and they were a partner. So for example, some of the things we do with partners are, one, there's things like affiliate links, right? That's pretty typical. That's like you get a link and anyone from your community who purchases product through that, you'll get a commission for that, which is great for creators who can, get their community to buy things like that. That is typically where a lot of like affiliate programs stop, or some even partner programs essentially stop there. We like to do a lot more with creators because we don't think that that is like, we want to do more work with creators. We want to show them off. So when we work with creators, we also do things like we provide them with gear. We send them full gear setups. We help them with gear for giveaways. We want them to be able to, foster a bigger community themselves and reward their own community for tuning in. So we help them out with giveaways. When we have new products come out, we tell our creators ahead of time before we even launch, just so they can get an idea of, these are the things we're looking to do. These are the things that are come out. Also, who might be interested in receiving some of the new products, because we always want to be looking for creators who are like actually interested. It goes back to authenticity, right? It's like if this creator is going to hate this mouse, we're not going to send it to them and tell them to tell their audience it's great. We want people who are interested in the product we're making to get those products. So we're constantly seeding new products to creators. We also just love resharing creators. Like we want to work with creators so that they can grow as well. So all the time, like if we tell them, if you have a cool clip, if you have, a hype clip, or you doing some awesome play or some really funny moment, send it to us and we'll share it on the Logitech G channels and we'll retweet like your special events. We just love to promote any creators that we think are doing great in the space.
So how does being like an affiliate compare to like creating a advertisement for you guys? What does that look like in terms of compensating, like perhaps even like small time content creators who are then trying to grow as a person, right? It seems like we've shifted from where we have TV advertisements and we're paying celebrities to participate in them to now being like having kids or teenagers who are then promoting brands and products. I'm sorry, this is like out of the blue, but I'm just saying.
That's totally
Great question.
fine. I mean, I think that is true, right? Like, there's a lot of different ways to advertise products now, and sometimes it's just a streamer wearing a product, and sometimes it is more like an advertisement that you'll see on TV. It really does, for compensation, it really does come down to what it is exactly. Like sometimes we'll grab creators from our partner program and be like, we want to film this commercial for this new headset, we want you to be in it, or we want still images of you wearing it that we can promote on our channel. And sometimes those are like paid things, but that's kind of a case by case basis for when that applies. A lot of the times we're just sending out product, and if you want to talk about it, you can, but we're not like, we're going to send you this headset, you have to tweet about it. It's really like, we're going to send you stuff to try out. If you like it, like, feel free to share, I think is how our approach.
Okay. Yeah, because we talk a lot about like, what does it look like of doing something for exposure versus like, how do we like then promote it? But I think it's cool. Like, I appreciate you like talking about how what it looks like to then offer compensation for content creators and supporting them in that way. I'm curious about your own experience. Do you feel like you mentioned that you were involved with, I think, Gaucho Gaming, right? That's your collegiate team. But how does your experience with collegiate now translate to your job now?
Sure. Yeah. On the collegiate team. Yeah. I did mention I played on the UCSB League of Legends team my junior and senior year of college. In terms of translating to now, I feel like a lot of that is actually very helpful for more of the esports social media side, because I kind of just have a deeper knowledge than I think most people on my team about competitive esports in general, but League of Legends specifically, right? There's a difference between knowing like, oh, this team won the game, and knowing like, oh, this guy went this build because of this, and like having that just deeper level of knowledge helps you make better copy for posts. It helps you make honestly better replies and like memes to our organizations that we're replying to. And it really is just going back to that word of like authenticity. Like I think that greater knowledge that I've built up from being on the esports team applies so much to being able to be like a brand that is not just like, hey, we're cool kiddos. It really is like we understand this stuff and we're in it and we love it too. So yeah, authenticity is just the word of the day, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean it makes a lot of sense. I think your background in esports teams and gaming has given you the authentic voice, or I guess the right voice to be able to have hearsay and have people believe in exactly what you're saying because you've been living, breathing / you are a professional in
Yeah.
the space. So yeah, Belle, thank you so much
Yeah.
for those questions. Really helpful, actually. It's we go forward too far from the actual definition of words and definition of what we do in the professional industry that it's really good to kind of sync up and help that out. So Belle, really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks for coming
Awesome.
on.
Yeah. Our next question is what is your background? So I think you broke it down a little bit in your overview. So it doesn't necessarily need to go through your, I guess, timeline of career and events, but I think it's more, are you very creative? I think with content creation and even social, there's this huge element of creativity that you have to build up. Do you have a lot of experience in that field? What I guess from since childhood besides gaming and besides your internships at Ubisoft and everything has kind of led to your role and everything you do.
Sure. Yeah, I think besides gaming, what has been some of the key things that have led to my role? It's hard to say. It's hard to know exactly what kind of led you into where you are now. I think
Yeah.
growing up, I was always taught like balance and everything, right? My
Yeah.
mom was always like, you can play a bunch of video games, but you have to balance it with playing sports, or you
Yeah.
can do this, but you have to do this. And I think that was really great for me because honestly, if I didn't have that push constantly, I probably would have just played video games all the time, and my grades may have not been that great.
Yeah.
So I really do think it comes back to balance. Like I played sports basically my entire life.
Yeah.
That probably tied into why I was such a big fan of esports because I love video games and my background. I guess you could just say like I've always been a competitive person, and that's in everything I do. Right? That's playing games. I want to be highest score of all my friends, and if not, like I'm grinding all night until I am.
Yeah.
That's kind of the mentality I've always had. I've been a grinder. I love to when I get really into something, I put a bunch of time into it. And I think that mentality translates over to a lot of the things that I have done in work. When I find something that's really interesting to me, I want to put a bunch of time into it. More recently, that's been actually like Adobe programs. Funnily enough,
Oh.
all of my like competitive side of I want to get better at League has translated into like, wow, I kind of want to edit like really cool videos or like learn Photoshop more so I can make like really cool memes.
Yeah.
And it's been great to be able to keep those traits I had and funnel them into something that's actually probably more productive than just playing video games. But I think playing video games is great.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it's fantastic for connecting with friends, and I really don't think I would be here without the years and years that I did play.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's great. I really like that point of balance. I think it's like, I think I often find I too played sports my entire life as a baseball player. And I actually find a lot of people in the industry, not only just, I guess, sports is such a big part of life in every childhood almost. But I think it's almost you find those lessons, not from other areas, and you find that applying to, I guess, your career or what you
yeah,
end up wanting to do it. And it's from those lessons where you find, okay, this is where I need to get better. It might not be exactly A to A, but I know, hard work, fighting adversity, all of that stuff helps me in this, avenue of my life. It for sure will translate over to my career.
absolutely.
So we're gonna go all Shen here and say balance is the
Balance in
second
all
word
things,
of our day. Balance
I think is
I
what
was
I
trying to
think
remember the quote. I was like,
that might be
man,
Aurelia. That might be
yeah,
Aurelia.
really.
Balance in all things. And then
Got
she
it.
got nerfed like 100 times.
I'm a jungler, so I don't really, unless it's River Shen, I'm not gonna get those,
Yep.
100 quotes in every second step you take. Got it. That's awesome. Well, that actually kind of translate over to, I guess, in this nature of translation and how, I guess, that particularly, like, how do you translate that background into your job at Logitech, right? I think you
Mhm.
talked about gaming, you could go back there, or creativity, but I guess directly towards Logitech, are there things that you have learned over the years that you exactly replicate to your current job?
Sure. I think one of the biggest skills that I picked up that has helped me with my job at Ubisoft and greatly helped me with my job at Logitech was really just like, it's funny because I was a communication major, but it really is just like learning how to talk to people better. And it sounds like such a, like, I feel like most people are like, study this skill or like get really good at this. And this seems like such a general weird thing, but it really just makes everything
Mhm.
easier. What one of my old directors used to say, it's not the job that is hard, it's the people that make it hard. And it's not even that people are intentionally trying to make it hard or anything like that, but just in everyday work life, like there's so
Mhm.
many things that are communicated poorly and people get confused and it just makes everything like messier and harder to
Mhm.
do. I really do think if you just work at like communicating with people and are really clear about what you need or what they need and get clarity for what they need, it just makes the process of everything easier. Um, so circle back, other skills that led to my job now. That's a great question. Um,
Is it so I guess stuff that you picked up coaching, things I guess
yeah.
when yeah.
I think a lot of it comes down to I feel like a lot of things that help me honestly it goes back to like video games, but it's
Mhm.
also video games is so general, right? It's like
Mhm.
knowledge of, you don't just want to play video games all day. That won't necessarily help you get a job. You
Sure.
want to do other things that surround video games as a whole. Like you want to learn about communities, you want to learn about not just one game, right? You want to play a bunch of different genres so you understand how to talk about these different genres.
Yeah.
I was always, I said I played a lot of League of Legends, but I was also always playing, different types of games. I played a bunch of Valorant. I always try, for me personally, esports is probably the most relevant video game. So I try to play like every esport to at least have some knowledge on how to talk about it. Um, and obviously, you're not going to be a pro in every game, but I would say like if you're interested in gaming, I know a lot of people are like, I want to work at Riot
Yeah.
Games, right? It's very competitive. It is very hard to get into, and you might not get
Yeah.
there first. If you want to work in video games, you might work at some company you've never heard of, or for
Yeah.
like some mobile game that you've never heard of. And it's really good to have a larger kind of portfolio of things. Be like, I've played mobile game. I may not play this exact one, but I've played mobile games before, or I've played FPS games before. I've played puzzle games before, and show that you have a knowledge of a general area of games, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the most important things I always see job descriptions kind of ask about is they ask about like how familiar are you with gaming communities, because all gaming brands want to be is authentic, relevant, and engaging, right?
Mhm.
Those are all the things, and if you can prove that you know how to do all those things, like jobs are going to want to pick you up. No one
Yeah.
wants to read social media of an account that doesn't understand their own game or doesn't understand the fan base that follows the account, right? You have to be able to have a greater knowledge and be authentic to everyone.
Yeah, I've always said it's almost kind of like two part where you have what you absolutely love. So in this instance, the subject is video games and gaming, right? And
Mhm.
then because gaming has just so many different aspects that go into it, and obviously different fields. You have broadcast, you have all the way to the esports game, you have the publisher side, you have teams, you have players, you have all of that, right? And then you kind of almost find your focus within that subject. So,
Absolutely.
content creation or esports social, or if you're on sales on my side, it's almost kind of two parts that meet in one. And you almost kind of pick that from, I guess, different avenues in life. If you were in college and, education wise, and you were just a brilliant writer, like, okay, well, there's your focus. Are you
Yeah.
playing games all the time? You know what I mean? Like, that's awesome. And Brandon, I think you hit the nail on the head where it's really, okay, you can't just play games all the time. No, you got
Yeah.
to write about it if that's your skill,
Yeah.
right? If you're just good at business, boom, there's your skill. I think that's always a good starting place, but I definitely love that path that you've kind of followed down on that, Brandon. Speaking into Logitech, how did you get your first job in the industry? What was the experience like, and do you have any advice for others landing that first job? Yeah,
Oh
first
yeah.
job is tough.
First job is tough. This is, I think, one of my favorite questions because I think it's the one that every kid in college always wants to ask, right? And this isn't just about video games. It's like in general, how do you get that first job when everything I'm applying to says 1 to 2 years of experience at like a minimum, right? I think one of the most relevant things is build up experience even in things that aren't jobs, right?
Mm.
I think my experience in the gaming club, even playing on the team, was extremely helpful in me getting accepted into Ubisoft. I actually know for a fact that it was because they told me after I was hired, they're like, oh, when
Yeah.
it again shows authenticity. I'm not just coming because I want the job. I'm coming because I love games. I'm coming because I've been doing this my whole life and it's what I want to do. And I remember my old director pointed out, he's like, oh yeah, like I saw you were on the team for 2 years. Like I knew that you were actually in this. Like you're not just applying this job to apply, right? Get experience in any way you can. I highly recommend if you're in college, like join your gaming club and try to not just be a part of it and like go to events, try to be an officer or try to be, someone on the staff that is like setting up these events, because all of that is relevant experience. Like the things that you're doing to set up for like LAN events or like fundraiser events, that's the same exact thing that you do at work, depending on the job, right? Like when I did events at Ubisoft, it was literally exactly the same type of stuff I would do, kind of helping out the club. Like you're setting up an area, you're kind of planning, a schedule out of what's going to happen. You just try and find relevant skills that you can train up and kind of convince that interviewer that you have relevant experience, right? And honestly, on a lot of job apps, they're asking for like overqualified. Like I think apply to those jobs that say 1 to 2 years if you have not worked 2 years. Like, but let's say you've been on the school like staff, whatever, for like a year. I think just apply. Like you may as well, right? Like don't cut yourself off. You may as well just send those out and hope for the best.
Yeah. I completely agree with
Yeah.
everything you absolutely said. No, that's absolutely it. I think finding experience in anything you do can make it relevable, right? Like even though this, I guess, would be strictly playing games and it's like just playing games, that is a huge experience booster because that just shows your dedication. My little cousin just made Immortals in Valorant last summer, and I said, put that on your resume everywhere.
Dude, totally.
Like everywhere. Yeah, it just shows your dedication. And then now you add the skills part to that. Okay, I've proven my dedication. This is my other stuff, right?
Yes.
So
exactly. It's like I think that's key is like you can't just be immortal at Valorant. That's awesome. You should put that on there, but make sure you're doing the other things, right? Make sure you're like, I'm also part of the club. I'm also, volunteering or have this side job to show that you're doing a variance of things and you don't just only play Valorant, which is awesome. And immortal is actually insane, but
it could be the flip side too. I'm not saying you have to be an immortal to get in esports.
Yeah.
I am gold 1 in league and that's I peaked that platform, you know what I mean? Like so it's just you find two ways, but if you have skills, put it in your portfolio because why not, right? Especially in this industry.
I think for the part of the question for reaching out to other people in the industry and networking, I would say number one for me, especially if you want to work in esports, is Twitter. I think a lot of people don't really. If you don't use Twitter, I think you should be on Twitter. If you do use Twitter, I think you should try and actually use Twitter. Not just have one and follow 500 pros and never post anything. Like that is actually one of the best ways that I've connected with people online about games and about whatever. To me, I think Twitter is almost like a esports LinkedIn. It's like how a lot of people meet in the industry. Like I know a lot of creators I've met specifically through Twitter. And it's like, I don't know, Twitter. I can't say enough about Twitter. I think Twitter is key for esports for sure.
That's awesome.
And also for oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. For reaching out, I know I said Twitter is the LinkedIn of esports. I also think LinkedIn is fantastic. I think if there's people in the industry doing a job that you like to do, reach out to them on LinkedIn. I think not everyone's going to reply. Like a lot of people are busy. Some people don't check their LinkedIn regularly. I probably don't check my LinkedIn enough, to be honest. But totally just reach out and be like, could I have 30 minutes of your time to talk about what you do and kind of like what you did to get there. And I think a lot of people are actually willing to talk to you. And that actually is also going to help you, one, not only make a connection, like if there's a future job, maybe they'd recommend you if you had a great call and they liked you, right? Maybe you could get a recommendation. Two, you can see if you might like that type of role. Like you might listen to what they're telling you they do every day. You might be like, that sounds terrible. I do not want to do that. And that's great too. And that's honestly really intimidating. Like I think reaching out to people can be kind of scary. But I do think it's one of the best things you can do. And once you do it, it's one of those things. It's like going to the gym. Once you do it, you're never going to regret it. You're gonna be like, oh, I'm glad I did that, even though it might be hard to get it going at first, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think you were saying something before I went
No,
on
no, you're
my
good. That
Twitter
actually answered the
my
next
Twitter
question.
glow.
That answered the next question. I mean, how do you reach out? How do you network, and how do you start that first step building a connection? I think that's exactly it. And those are certainly unique ways. I think Twitter is something that I personally didn't actually think about. So maybe back in the day, that's something that could have absolutely helped out.
Yeah.
At this point, I would actually like to remind everyone to ask questions that you need to head over to the discord.gg/TSMU and ask your questions in the Ask Stream Questions Here channel. Once you've asked that question, please join the waiting room voice channel. If it is a voice channel, you could also ask the text channel. And if it is voice, you'll be selected to join us on the show. So really cool to hear about your networking. I think the next part is really, I guess, your just day-to-day life at Logitech. What is that like? What are your responsibilities? What do you do? What is the daily life of Brandon?
Sure, daily life of Brandon. Wow, that sounds so much more interesting than it probably is. It's a lot of meetings for sure. I mean, meetings make the world go around. I think in actual jobs. But besides that, like a lot of my job is kind of like maintaining these relationships we have with content creators, maintaining the relationships we already have, as well as building up the program itself, and also checking out new creators that we might want to bring into the program. It's probably what I'm doing like most of the day. And to give you like a little deeper dive into like what does it mean to maintain relationships with creators, a lot of that is making sure everyone has gear that works, gear that fits them, gear that they like. A lot of that is talking to people about maybe cool events they're doing or charity events they're doing that they want to get promotion on, or they want to get some giveaway product for. It's also replacing broken product. That's a lot of the like maintenance, and also just talking to people. Like a lot of the creators that I work with are actually just like some of the coolest people, and sometimes we just talk. Like occasionally I've just like played games with some of the creators I work with. It's like, oh, I'm playing League tonight. I'm like, oh, great. That's also part of like building those relationships with creators, which I love. Like I love talking to people all the time. I think I've gotten some feedback from friends. Sometimes I talk too much, but it's a great job for me because all I get to do is talk to people. Besides that, esports social is kind of where the rest of my day probably lies. It kind of goes up and down depending on what's happening. When there's tournaments going on, for example, right now is League of Legends Worlds. For those of you who do not play League of Legends or don't follow competitive, there's a lot of posts going up every day for the teams that we sponsor. We try and do tune-in posts for every single game. We sponsor a bunch of orgs. For those of you who might not know, Logitech G, some of the big ones you might know are like G2 Esports, TSM, Strawless, all these brands that we are organizations that we work with, and we're always just trying to share their content, right? So yeah, that's probably the rest of my days is besides scheduling tweets for esports teams, it's trying to think up funny memes, I guess, is that's a small chunk, but it's an important chunk.
That's a small chunk, but that's a phenomenal part, and
it
that's
really
what to me
brings
would make the job.
it all together.
Don't worry, Brandon. That's really funny, and that's so many jokes because I too am told I talk too much. But that is from, I guess, a position. I'm on sales, so that is my job as well to just talk to people and have these conversations.
Yeah.
It's really funny when people say that jobs are just a reflection of who you are.
It really, yeah, find
It
a
really
job
is.
that you're
Yeah.
naturally good at, right?
Yeah.
That's the dream. It's like, oh, you can just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that is awesome, man. Living the dream here, Brandon. Living the dream. The next question is actually something that I've really been interested in about,
Mhm.
and super curious to hear your thoughts are. How do you develop social copy? Social copy. Any tips on how to create good copy? I think this one seems like
Mm.
tough because for me personally, I think I'm not a copywriter. I don't pretend to be one, but I
Yep.
think whenever I think about pitches or just cool lines to use, maybe if you're at a plane or a bar as an opening icebreaker, it'll come up to my mind and I'll write it down and I'll
Yeah.
try to fit it somewhere. But I'm curious on, does it just randomly hit you Like at a 2 a.m., do you find the perfect line for the perfect meme for the
Totally.
perfect GIF/GIF?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tips for writing good social copy, how to develop. Honestly, I mean, it's hard personally. Like I'm not someone that it just 2 a.m. like I know the perfect copy. It is one of those things where I have to sit there with it and really just think about it. I think tips that I could give are really just try and put in any like extra information that you can. It really comes back to like for example for like League of Legends things for some of these pro players, like I know a lot of extra information off the top of my head about them because I followed them so long, and I can add like flavor to these posts. I could be like,
Mhm.
4-time, LCS champion, like whatever. I think you're always just trying to add more copy that shows one, you know what you're talking about, and two, might be interesting to the people reading. You might do some like fun facts, like did you know this person's like 2000th kill in the LCS season, right?
Mhm.
Um, Developing social copy is, to me, it's actually it is pretty hard. I think you just have to sit with it and think it through. And luckily for me, I don't have to do it alone. I have some awesome people on my team, specifically for esports. I work with my coworker Alex and my coworkers Lauren and Olive all the time to develop copy. And personally, I think that's one of the best ways to do copy is to like come up with it, run
Yeah.
it by other people. Like, what do you
Yeah.
think? Do you have anything to add? And a lot of times it changes, right? As you share it, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't know that. Like, that's great. So yeah, if you can run copy by multiple people, that's the best way to do it. That's also how you catch mistakes. If you're doing social media, you're gonna post a lot of copy mistakes, and you never know until you post something, and then like 2 hours later, you look at the post, and you're like, "Why does it have 10 comments on it?" And you click it open, you're like, "I
Oh
spelled the word
no.
like
Yeah.
sandwich wrong, right?" And everyone's
Yeah.
correcting me on the word sandwich. That's gonna
Yeah.
happen a lot.
Uh,
If you're doing it by yourself, read every tweet like 5 times. That's my
yeah.
biggest recommendation for copy.
No,
But yeah,
I really like that rec because I feel like that's one thing that I know I myself struggle with, but I feel like one, a vetting process is super important. You also want to
mhm,
make sure that what you're saying is proper and you're not going to get in
yeah,
trouble for it and it's everything according to brand guidelines, etc.
yep,
Also, just being a good human. But then the second part of it is, I guess my question is, do you ever have a looming fear that like what you think is hilarious and it's
mhm,
perfect and then you
mhm,
write it down and like and no one laughs, you get zero engagement.
all the
Like, is that
time.
like a common anxiety?
All the time.
Yeah.
This is like every like
Yeah.
joke post, right? I'm like, is this funny? And to me, it might be hilarious. And it really does come back to like, for me, I'm super fortunate. I have a group of people to work with where I can be like, guys, is this
Yeah.
funny? Please tell
Like,
me if.
dude,
And sometimes they come back and they're like, I don't get it. Like, blah blah. Blah. I'm like, okay, it wasn't funny. Thank you.
as long as they
Um,
don't cringe.
as long as they don't cringe. But that really is a fear that goes in your mind all the time. Of like, I feel like there's so many fears in social, right? It's like,
Yeah.
hope I didn't make a spelling mistake. Hope I didn't make a grammar mistake. I think is this funny is probably one of the biggest ones when you're trying to be funny, because it's so easy to not be funny. If I
Yeah.
don't
So
know,
easy
but
to not be funny.
it's hard to be funny. It really is hard to be
Yeah.
funny. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
once again, like if you can run it by people, it's always the best for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially for funny things. If you don't trust your sense of humor, highly recommend running it by people.
Comedy is hard. I think I used to be in
Yeah,
film and I realized funny like comedy is one of the hardest genres. If you like comedians, like they're awesome people. They're just so smart. You have to be
absolutely.
smart to be witty, you know what I mean?
You do.
Yeah.
And social copy people are lucky, right? You might have, at least a couple of minutes, maybe even a couple hours or days to
Yeah.
think of something funny. Like
Oh, heck yeah.
comedians are just up
Yeah.
there just going.
Yeah.
And that's actually a little bit of the struggle with esports. It's like you don't always have time to be funny. It's like they just won the match, or like something really hilarious just happened in this game. It's like, guys, what's something really funny right now we can post? That's always happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you wanted to be a stand-up comedian, maybe you should think about being a social copywriter.
Our next question is actually something that I'm sure all the normies are asking about.
Hmm.
How is it working with content creators? How do you manage those relationships? This one, I'd imagine it could be you. I'm sure you find the amazing content creators. I love all of our roster over on Icon. I love whenever I
Hmm.
get to meet the talent because they're great people. But I'm sure you're gonna get people that are like pretty hard to work with,
Sure.
and just like maybe stubborn or just non-existent or they don't think about what goes on the back end. I'm
Yeah.
curious what you think about those relationships.
Sure. It really is similar to what I was saying before of like it's not the job that makes it hard, it's the people that make it hard.
Mm,
Sometimes like some people are just really hard to work with. And like
yeah.
you'll get great experience with this too when you're like working in school and you're doing group projects and you have like three members that don't do anything or you have like one member that does absolutely nothing, right? There's always going to be those people in real life. But it's just kind of like how do you deal with them? Fortunately enough for me, I feel like for the most part, like creators are great. I love like all of the creators we work with. A lot of the creators, that we choose to work with, we choose them because we can see that they really want to work with us and they would be great to work with. So most of the time it's fantastic, right? Like
Hmm.
I personally I didn't actually start when I first started Logitech, I wasn't doing I was doing community management and now it's more like creator relationships and a lot of that came to be because just like on the side I'd also like assist with some creator things. I'd like send them some things, I'd talk to them, and then I was like, whoa, I really enjoy talking to all these people, and that's what kind of like shifted my role over time. So personally, working with creators has been fantastic for me. I'm
That's
sorry
great.
if that's not the same experience for everybody, but I really do feel like a lot of creators are just like super genuine and just want to be treated the same way everyone else wants to be treated.
Yeah.
It's just another job. Some people are hard to work around, but that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah. No, I bet. I think that that genuinity really probably comes more so. And I'm not taking a dump on content creators or any celebrities when I say this,
Oh
but
yeah,
I feel like a lot of them are just genuinely good people because that's like the platform of Twitch where you kind
yeah,
of create this personal environment. So you see them as humans because they are humans.
yep.
And I bet there's a way vast majority of just amazing people out there that you get to meet, which is really cool to hear.
Hmm.
Yeah. What about some of the challenges of your job? What are the most challenging aspects of it? Is it more the it seems like you have awesome people you work with, content creators. Is there trouble with communication on that end sometimes, just because of their busy
Mm,
schedules? Is it the looming fear of cringe posts?
yeah,
Yeah.
challenges. That's a great question. I think originally when I first joined, I think one of our challenges was originally bandwidth. Like I think we
Mm,
had all these amazing ideas of things we wanted to do in social or even like with creators and activations. But this is one of the problems that can come with a very small team is you just don't have enough people to do all the things that you want to do.
mm,
Unfortunately enough, like over the past year, we've essentially like doubled our size as a team, which lets us do like way more things, which is super, super cool. But I think early on, that was probably one of the biggest struggles. Other struggles, I mean, there are things that just come up that you can't do anything about. Like sometimes you have, uh, I don't know. You have an event planned, right? Like we're gonna do. We run G Challenge, and we wanted essentially sim racing, and we have a huge event we
oh,
want to do, and something comes up, and all of a sudden you can't do the event at all, right? These things happen, but you just kind of have to keep working around them, right? Like things are always gonna go wrong, especially in when it comes to things that are live, like social media. Things are always gonna be going wrong. I think one of the biggest issues is like making sure that we have assets go up at the right time. Sometimes we plan, things to go out. Okay, this game's supposed to start at 5 a.m. Like we'll start shipping stuff. And then it comes around and not because of our fault, but because of like LCS is running like 2 hours behind. All of a sudden things go up at the wrong time. So I think you're constantly just dealing with a lot of like small problems. But there's nothing like major that we're kind of like
mm,
consistently dealing with, I feel like. But it's just things come up. I feel like that's how almost anything is. You just have to be able to go with the flow and keep working towards whatever your goal is.
no, that makes sense. What about skills that that you've developed that helps you prep for those, I
Mhm.
guess, hiccups or get you in those situations? I think it leads to our next question of what skills do you recommend that social media managers work on, to best prepare for the roles in these adversities?
Sure. I
Yeah.
think being able to work under pressure is really, really important.
Mm.
I know a lot of people like struggle with that. For me, I feel like I'm lucky, I guess, in that I feel like I'm the most fueled when I'm under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And something that might help with this, if you're not as good at it, is trying to do jobs that force you to do it. Like personally, when I did events at Ubisoft, we did a lot of like live events. Like we'd host live streams for like some celebrities that were going to be on there, and there's like a lot of pressure. Like there are like millions of dollars being spent to like have these people come on. You don't want any errors to happen, and mistakes happen like live. And I think that training like that is actually prepared me very well for social media. I think that like on hand live experience would prepare you very well for social media. Like just being able to think on the spot, work under pressure is key. So maybe if you're not good at that, put yourself into really stressful situations and try and make logical decisions. I'm trying to think of like some things you could just do to practice.
I got this. I got this.
That
You gotta
don't sound terrible.
be a jungler, and it's a 40-minute game.
Sure.
And you're fighting for Elder, and just play any of these play any Riot game, and you'll feel the pressure.
It's literally like if you're someone that can go into a game like League of Legends and you have like strong mental, no matter what, like even when you're losing and everything looks doomed, if you're the person who's like, guys, we can do this and this, like it's our best chance. I strongly believe that building your mental in video games helps you in life in general. Like it's a meme and it sounds funny, but it really is. Like sometimes things just go terrible in live events, and like you have to do things fast. And the people who can like stay calm, cool, and collected are the ones that succeed the most, right?
Yeah.
So
you remember yourself. If you're in job, you remember yourself in that situation. Be like,
Totally.
what did I do to overcome this? How did I win that game? If I'm under fire and job, not under fire, but like if you're under pressure and job, just that deep breath, and then you kind of go at it. That's a great way. Yeah,
I think
like
just
that.
like if I can't think of the most perfect way besides video games, but I'd say like just put yourself out there in situations that make you uncomfortable. Like if
like
going
that.
to like club meetings and like standing up in front of talking to people makes you uncomfortable, like just do it in a place where you feel a little more comfortable. Like maybe it's a small group setting, right? Maybe it's in front of friends, but practice those skills, because once you get comfortable with it in an easier setting, it'll be easier in a harder setting, right?
Yeah.
Like if you just get thrown into something, you're not going to know how to handle it. But if you're like, okay, I've done something like this before, or like I've been in a situation like this before, I know kind of what to do, take it one step at a time, it's going to help you tenfold.
Yeah. No, I really like that. And you develop relationship skills and networking as well, and helps the other ones all in one.
Yeah.
Three birds with one stone. That's great.
Networking is number one thing. If you going back to wanting to work in the industry, man, it's be friends with literally everyone. Everyone in the club is your friend. And everyone you meet that comes to speak, or like you go to like LCS events and they're there, go talk to them, shake their hand. Like you never know what connection could actually help you in the future, right?
No, absolutely. You scratch their back, you never know what happens, and it's great always to have that contact book. Yeah,
everyone's your friend.
We have time for absolutely, especially you, Brandon. We built a relationship, a bond right here.
I'll be everyone's friend.
We got time for one more question. It's actually from Bell Bellum again, who asked, you mentioned posting to social media. What is your role with Logitech social media accounts, or were you talking about just memeing on your personal socials?
I do. I post a lot on the Logitech G esports social medias. I also, I assist on the regular Logitech G socials as well. I do like to meme. I actually feel like since starting Logitech G, I barely post any memes on my personal account. And I feel like a lot of time it's because I'm like, oh, I thought of this great meme. And then I'm like, I should just post this on the brand account. Like, why would I use this myself when I could use it for this larger account where way more people will see it? So if you go to my Twitter, there's really not many memes. But if you see something funny on esports, might be me.
Yeah. That's funny. It's that struggle of when you meme too much in your career, you gotta go back home and you get a little tired of memeing.
It is. It's actually hilarious to me because it has happened multiple times where I watch an LCS game or something and I'm like, oh, this would be so funny. I should post this, and then I'm like, there's just no point to post it on my personal. Like I'll just post it on the esports channel.
Well, could you test the meme, see if your own friends find it funny? Really?
I mean, I could. I feel like I'm usually a pretty good judge of like, this must be funny, right? Like, I mean, I absorb a lot of that content from scrolling through the feed and seeing what other people are posting. I feel like I have a pretty good sense usually of like, the community would enjoy this type of post, right?
Sure.
And that's really where like community knowledge comes back into effect. It's like for years I've gone on the League of Legends subreddit and Valorant subreddits, and I see the jokes that they think are funny, right? It might not
Yeah.
even be funny to me, but I know what might be funny to them. And as you get older, I think this is where people are like, oh, you don't understand the memes and the jokes, but like they don't necessarily even have to be funny to me if I know that this certain audience will
Yeah.
love it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of just general advice for posting on social accounts is like it's not always just what you kind of like. It's like what's your target audience like? What do they
Mhm.
want to see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everyone, it's Brandon Ho, the dog impersonator slash walking meme.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for watching this awesome episode. Brandon, I really wanted to thank you. I had a great time meeting you. You're an awesome dude, and hopefully see you out on the Rift someday. If you want to ever coach me into Plat, would love to
Absolutely.
connect that
Let's do
way.
it. Let's run it up.
Let's do it. Awesome, guys. Well, again, thank you so much for watching. Letting you guys know that our next show will be on October 13th at 5 p.m. Our guest for that show is Kathy Gee, who's the competition operations coordinator for the Call of Duty League. Please remember to follow all of our socials, hit and follow everything TSMU so that you're up to date with all the latest news. Again, thank you so much for joining us, Brandon. I had a great time. Hope you did too, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah. Thanks everybody.
Cool. Bye, Al.